Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are opening a file that, honestly, it feels like it shouldn't even exist. We're looking at a source that starts in what's called a bottom drawer of shame. I mean, literally, a drawer filled with failed novels, and somehow ends up in the cockpit of a bomber over Europe.
It's such a weird trajectory, right? Usually when we do these dives, we're looking at, dry operational records, unit diaries, maybe a polished memoir.
Right, by a general who wants to look good?
Exactly. It's just messier. It's a biographical account that admits right up front, I didn't really know what I was doing, and the history I found was pretty much an accident.
And that's our mission for this deep dive, really, to figure out how a failed musician, the author, stumbled upon a World War II aviator named Nevin Filby. And it was all because of this handwritten note that made absolutely no sense.
Well, and that note is the key. It's a great reminder that history isn't just dates and maps. It's often, buried under family myths, typos, total misunderstandings. If you want the truth, you have to be willing to dig past what seems impossible.
So let's start with the digger himself. Before we even get to the war hero, we have to talk about the author. Because this source, it doesn't start with a bang or a battle. It starts with a whimper, a very musical, out-of-tune whimper.
It really establishes his credentials as a professional failure, essentially, which is, I think, a great rhetorical device. He just lowers your expectations so he can hit you with the heavy history later on.
He calls himself the greatest disappointment to his mother. And reading this, you get the sense this wasn't just a casual thing. This was like a strategic failure of a family dynasty.
The mother had this whole vision of a, Von Trapp-style family. She wanted guests to arrive at the house and hear the sweet sound of a cello wafting from behind closed doors. She wanted culture.
And instead, she got absolute chaos. The source details this hilarious household. You've got one brother who picks up a guitar for like a week and then quits. Then another brother who just screams songs from the Beatles' Double White album in the shower.
That just dates it perfectly. And screaming implies a certain lack of finesse.
Exactly. And the sister, completely tone deaf. But the author, he was the tragic figure because he actually had a bit of talent. He had perfect pitch. He admits he had a passable singing voice, which he used to get into the choir and shave a bit off the school fees.
So the mother thinks, aha, this is it. Here is my prodigy.
And she doubles down, buys a German upright piano, a serious investment for a family back then.
Oh, huge.
And then basically weaponizes it. She puts it squarely next to his bedroom door. There is literally no escape. He has to pass this beast to even leave his room.
And the result is just years of him thumping away at keys he hated. It gets genuinely dark, though. He mentions that later he learned his old piano teacher committed suicide. He has this dry, morbid line. I still wonder whether I was a contributing factor.
It's a joke, but it points to this deep feeling of inadequacy. He tries the trumpet-bruised lips, angry neighbors. Later on, he tries the banjo, and his own son picks it up and plays it better than him in about 3 minutes.
It's the bottom drawer of shame. We all have one, right? Failed scripts, half-written novels. But the pivot point here is that he finally finishes something. He writes a book about World War II airmen.
And this is where our deep dive really kicks off. He gets the book published, he's smelling the fresh paper, feeling successful for once, but then that curse of the researcher kicks in. He starts thinking about all the stuff he left out, the index cards on the floor.
And specifically, one cryptic note pinned to a manila folder.
The note just reads, Nevin Filby, pilot Spitfires, Lancasters. Now, to me, a casual observer, that sounds pretty impressive, a fighter and a bomber. But you're shaking your head. Why did that note drive the author crazy? Why is that combination so weird?
Because it's structurally, it's inconsistent with how the Royal Air Force or the RAAF operated. It's like saying someone was a starting pitcher for the Yankees and also the linebacker for the Giants in the same season.
Wow, okay.
It's not just about flying the plane, it's the entire culture and the role.
So break that down for us. Is it about the skill set?
It's the entire mindset. The Spitfire is a single-seat fighter. It's an interceptor. The pilot is, a lone wolf, trained in dogfighting, high G-forces, split-second reflexes. It's a sports car. The whole culture of fighter command was very individualistic.
And the Lancaster?
The Lancaster is a 4-engine heavy bomber. It's a flying truck. It carries a crew of 7. The pilot there isn't dogfighting. He's more like a bus driver and a team captain. He has to fly steady and level for hours so the navigator and bombardier can do their jobs. You don't just swap between those roles.
So the author is staring at this note thinking, who is this Superman? He can't figure out the logistics of a career that spans both fighter command and bomber command. It just it tantalized him.
Yeah, he assumes he's found a unicorn. A total anomaly. Maybe someone who washed out of fighters and went to bombers, or the other way around.
Yeah.
But even that was pretty rare.
So he tracks down Nevin Filby. He makes the call. He's expecting this epic war story of how he transferred from the agile Spitfire to the massive Lancaster. And the whole thing just pops.
It's the classic historian's letdown. The note was just wrong. A well-meaning relative had grabbed the author at a party, shoved the note in his pocket, and just got the planes mixed up.
So Nevin never flew Spitfires.
Nope.
And he never flew Lancasters.
No. He flew the North American B-25 Mitchell.
Okay, let's pause on the machinery here. We know the Spitfire is the sports car, the Lancaster is the semi-truck. What's the B-25 Mitchell?
It's the muscle car. It's a twin-engine, medium bomber. American-made, used by the RAF and RAAF. It's loud, it rattles, it's heavily armed, and it's designed for a completely different kind of war than the Lancaster. It's scrappier.
So the note was a total red herring. But the author says his heart soared when he found out it was the Mitchell. Why? Why would a medium bomber be more interesting to him than a Lancaster?
Because of who flew them. Nevin wasn't in Bomber Command, the guys doing the high-altitude cities smashing at night. He was in something called the 2nd Tactical Air Force, the 2PAF.
The firemen.
Exactly. We'll get into the tactics of the 2TAF in a minute, because it is terrifying stuff.
Yeah.
But the author realizes he hasn't found a unicorn. He's found something much grittier. So he goes to meet Nevin.
And this meeting scene is so vivid. It's not in a museum or anything. It's just in the suburbs.
It's so domestic. Nevin's office is a large oak table in his living room. And this is a really crucial insight. Nevin isn't just a passive subject. He is an active historian of his own life. The table is just piled high with books, papers, exercise books crammed with handwriting.
It's got the little colored sticky notes everywhere.
He does. He's cross-referencing. He's correcting the record. It shows a man who is deeply engaged with what he went through, not someone who's just trying to forget it. He's treating his own memory with the rigor of a scholar.
And the hospitality his wife Mary brings out the tea and the tempting array of homemade goodies. It's such a huge contrast. You're there to talk about high explosives and death, and you're eating a scone.
But that's the reality of the veteran experience, isn't it? The war is partitioned off, but it's living right there in the living room. Nevin himself is described as having a firm, slightly gravelly voice. He's direct. When the author sort of stammers a bit, asking about his flying career, Nevin just says, "Righto, that's easy."
No ego at all.
None. He's so grounded. The source mentions he's from Grenfell, New South Wales.
Genuine pioneer stock, the text says.
Right. And Grenfell is significant. It's the birthplace of Henry Lawson, the famous poet, and is the stomping ground of Ben Hall, the bushranger. It implies a certain toughness, a kind of rural pragmatism. He comes from a place where you just fix things yourself.
And that pragmatism, it bleeds right into his motivation for joining the war. I think this is my favorite part of the source. We're so used to that for king and country narrative.
A propaganda reel, yeah.
Exactly. But Nevin, he's not buying it.
Not at all. The source points out he was politically aware. He'd watched the Japanese advance through China and Manchuria in the 30s. He knew the storm was coming. But when asked why he joined, he doesn't give a big speech about democracy or the empire.
He just says, I can shoot, I'm strong, I can knock over a few Japs.
It's so utilitarian, it's almost like he's applying for a job. I have a skill set strength and marksmanship that is currently in high demand, so I will go.
I might as well get in to do my part. It's so Australian, so understated. But the military, being the military, doesn't put this strong shooting pioneer in a plane.
Of course not. It's 1942. The world is on fire. The Japanese are moving south, and Nevin Filby is sitting on a beach in Sydney.
Balmoral Beach. Lovely spot for a holiday. Terrible spot for a war.
He's manning a 3.7-inch anti-aircraft gun, and he hates it. He calls it pretty bloody useless.
He's bored. He feels like he's wasting that strength and shooting ability. And this is where the story pivots on just a random conversation. He has a neighbor.
A next-door neighbor, who just happens to be a lecturer at the RAAF Initial Training School. Nevin is venting over the back fence, I assume, about how useless he feels. And the neighbor says, well, why don't you apply to be a pilot?
Now, logic would dictate that Nevin would jump at this, but the source drops a bombshell here. It says the word pilot struck a deep chord of fear in him.
And this is what makes Nevin so fascinating. He is not the born-to-fly archetype. He was apparently terrified of aviation.
It goes back to a childhood trauma, doesn't it, when he was 16?
Yes. A barnstorming gypsy moth biplane came to Grenfell. This was like the circus coming to town in those days. Nevin and his sister saved up a shilling to go for a spin. But the source material actually cuts the sentence off in this really dramatic way. It says, that afternoon, however, over the and it just stops.
It's a cliffhanger in the archives.
It is, but we can infer the rest. The context implies he witnessed a crash or some severe accident involving that plane, so for years he associated aircraft not with freedom, but with, twisted metal and death.
So hold on. We have a guy who's incredibly practical, who wants to be useful, but who has this specific phobic reaction to planes. And yet, when the neighbor suggests it, he does it.
I mean, that is the definition of courage. It's not fearlessness. It's the calculation that his desire to be useful in the war outweighed his terror of the machine. He literally forced himself to do it.
So he overcomes the fear, he trains, he gets shipped off to England, and the arrival scene is another one of those great contrasts.
The Grand Hotel in Brighton.
Which is pretty fancy.
It's the absolute peak of Victorian opulence, chandeliers, velvet, high society. But in wartime, it's the number 11 RAAF personnel dispatch. The source calls the men grubby colonial airmen.
I just love that image. Farm boys from Grenfell with their kit bags standing in a ballroom where dukes used to dance.
It captures the social upheaval of the war perfectly. But Nevin doesn't stay there. He gets assigned to number 2 group. And this brings us right back to the B-25 Mitchell and the firemen.
Right, the cryptic note said Lancasters. That would have meant Bomber Command. But he ends up in the 2nd Tactical Air Force. We should explain this distinction clearly. What does tactical actually mean here? Why is it so different from the main bomber force?
Okay, think of it like this. Bomber Command, the Lancasters, was strategic. Their job was to destroy the enemy's capacity to wage war over the long term. They bombed factories, rail hubs, cities. They flew high, usually at night, and they played the long game of attrition.
And tactical.
Tactical is immediate. It's battlefield support. The 2TAF was formed based on the lessons learned in the North African desert against Rommel. They realized the army needed an air force that could clear the path right now.
So if a tank column is stuck or a bridge needs to blow up to stop a retreat...
You call the 2TAF, they were the dial and air raid boys.
That sounds significantly more dangerous than high-altitude bombing.
It's a different kind of danger, for sure.
Yeah.
They're flying lower. You're flying in daylight. You can see the people shooting at you, and they can see you. The flak isn't just a cloud, it's aimed. And the B-25 Mitchell was the workhorse for this. It was fast enough to get in, drop a heavy load on a precise target, and get out. It required a pilot who was, well, aggressive.
The source mentions the leader of this group, Air Vice Marshal Basil Embry. He sounds like a character right out of a movie.
A boy's own adventure hero, the text says. Basil Embry is a legend. He didn't just command from a desk, he led from the front.
And he had a backstory.
Oh, a huge one. Back in 1940, he was flying a Blenheim bomber. He got shot down behind German lines, he bowled out, was captured, and then, while being marched into captivity, he just escaped. Walked back to England through occupied territory.
That is the guy I want leading my tactical unit.
Exactly. It sets the tone. An aggressive, lead-from-the-front spirit. Nevin Filby, the guy who was terrified of biplanes, ends up flying medium bombers for an escape artist commander in the most reactive, dangerous part of the air war.
It really reframes that whole cryptic note at the beginning. If the author had found a note saying, Nevin Filby, Tactical Air Force, he might not have been as intrigued. But the mistake, that impossible Spitfire Lancaster combo, that's what lured him in.
And that's the so what of this whole deep dive.
Where?
The author calls it the messy human process of history. We think of history as this clean timeline. But it's not. It's memories. It's typos.
It's a relative at a party getting the names of the planes wrong.
Precisely. If the author had been a better historian at first, he might have looked at that note, realized it was technically impossible, and just thrown it in the bin. He would have been right, but he would have completely missed the story.
Because he was an amateur, because he was confused, he made the phone call.
And he found the truth. He found Nevin in that living room. He found a man who didn't fight for glory or some big ideology, but because he was strong and could shoot.
It makes you wonder about that bottom drawer of shame. The author felt like a failure for so long, failed musician, failed novelist, but that willingness to poke around, to ask the dumb questions, is what ended up preserving Nevin's story.
It suggests that sometimes, failure is just the long road to the right discovery, and it shows the value of persistence. The author mentions that when he opened that first box of his books, he felt relief, but he also realized how fragile these stories are. Nevin Filby was just a name on a file until someone knocked on his door.
So here's the thought we want to leave you with today. We all have those family myths. The uncle who definitely met Winston Churchill, the grandmother who invented some famous recipe, or the file that says someone flew 2 planes they couldn't possibly have flown.
The cryptic notes of our own lives.
So our question to you is this. How many of those errors in your own family history are you ignoring just because they don't seem to make sense? And more importantly, what incredible, grounded, truth-like, terrified boy growing up to fly Mitchell bombers is hiding behind them, just waiting for you to pick up the phone?
Don't throw away the note just because it looks wrong. It might be the key to something much better.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Go ask some questions. We'll see you next time.